Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the Lincoln Way 210 Board of Education. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glass?
Here.
Mr. Kosel?
Here.
Mr. Luchetti?
Here.
Mr. Kirking?
Here.
Mr. Costick?
Here.
Mr. Rulo?
Here.
Mrs. Molinari?
Here. Again, thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. We begin with public comments. I will remind you that public comments are to be 5 minutes in length, no longer. I will give you a signal when you approach the 1 minute mark. First tonight is Elizabeth Bergard. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's been nearly 2 years since the devastating news came out to the community about Lincoln Way District 210's true financial status. Since then, residents have dealt with this situation in many different ways. It has not been easy to be a parent of a child who has moved this year. Despite your beliefs that the kids are resilient and will be just fine, I beg to differ. There are many kids who are not fine and want only to return to their old schools. Had the closing of any school been for any reason other than the fact that adults in power made a lot of horrible decisions and failed to do their jobs properly, and had there not been federal investigations, this would never have been so difficult for our community. The closure was not due to some unforeseen catastrophic event like a fire or a tornado, as we all know. Had that been the case, this move would have fostered a great deal of love and support within the community instead of dividing it. Instead, this move was done hastily without any regard to the well-being of our children and without any visible disaster to the physical structure of North High School. It is fully intact, and our kids drive by that building and see that there is nothing wrong with it. The band and other activities still practice there. How would you like to be pulled from an architecturally award-winning environment that most importantly has become your home away from home and suddenly dropped into a school with issues of overcrowding, problematic HVAC issues, leaking ceiling tiles, and moldy showers, while your old school sits silent and unused? The 5 board members up for re-election all claimed last week that the kids and the academic standards are the most important issue at hand. I find that remarkable, given what has transpired. Please tell me how my child's academic experience is your priority when she sits in maxed out classrooms every day. I hear you touting the academic awards this district has won, but let me remind you that these awards were won while we were still a 4-school district. Time will tell how closing a school will affect the education of each and every one of these kids. Please stop kidding yourselves that you have the kids' best interest at heart. When have you ever asked them how they feel? So, what do we do with North High School now? Just what is planned for that campus? I have yet to hear from the administration or this board about what our options truly are. Many have repeatedly asked you what we can or cannot do with the vacant campus. Speculations about what can be done with Lincoln Way North abound on social media boards. Why don't we have clear answers nearly 2 years later? You state that you have made an effort to be transparent with the information and that you want community involvement. Well, I'm here to challenge that. When are you going to come forward and tell us what we are truly up against with the bonds? We all know that that train is headed down the track straight for every one of our tax bills. We were able to dig that information up on our own. We know you restructured them once in 2013, while our credit was still good enough to do so. You bought yourselves some time, but that time is running out. And now we are at junk bond status. you added 9 years and $104 million to our debt. We know this because we researched it. It never came from you. The 5 of you up for re-election said you've improved transparency. But how is that transparent? This is the one single issue that will affect every tax-paying resident of this district, whether they have a child or not. What we also still don't know is just how limited we are in repurposing the use of the north building that we will be paying for until 2033. In a Southtown article dated February 26, 2017, Susan DeMar Lafferty reported, quote, Tingley said the district also sought a legal opinion before inking a contract with the Park District, end quote. You will see in your board docs this evening that Jane Forlenza submitted a FOIA request for that very information. The request was denied. Why is this information secret? This denied FOIA and the fact that it ever needed to be submitted is proof of the lack of transparency and unwillingness of you to be forthright with your own community. 3 of you are in fields of business that are directly linked to the issue of our vacant building, yet we still have not been told what our options really are. Rumors abound on social media and in local conversation. Can North and or West be used for anything other than public education? Can Central or East be sold? If we can sell East or Central, who can they be sold to? We deserve answers to these questions. This single denied FOIA is the perfect symbol of what needs to be changed because, first of all, if it was denied because no counsel was ever formally sought and documented to be shared among you and our community, then shame on you for not looking into options after all this time. If it was denied because you just can't bring yourselves to share the information, then shame on you again for not being transparent and making the community aware of important information. And last, if this community doesn't fix this board on April 4th, shame on us.
Couple things. The attorney wrote the agreement through the Park District, so that's the document that exists. Obviously, when we have hundreds of millions of dollars at stake in bond usage, we would consult the attorneys and counsel before doing anything that could potentially violate the tax-free status of those bonds. So in terms of a written opinion, our attorney worked with the Park District attorney to craft that document. In terms of use of the building, it's government use. It must be public use. Right now, I would think a perfect use would be a college facility, a college use center. There were discussions with Joliet Junior College a year ago. Quite simply, the price point wouldn't make sense and we would be subsidizing their use of that facility. And it wouldn't be for the whole facility. They wanted a couple classrooms. We've read recent articles about Governor State, different colleges having problems. But we have received from John Izzo, our counsel, it can be used for government public use. It cannot be used for private profit or gain entities. So we look to use it again with the Park District next year. We will be reaching out to Governor State. Probably not a good solution, as they're going to, I saw in the paper, they're cutting 20 programs. But it is government use. But I want you to know we did utilize that. In terms of the long-term bonds, we've had discussions and presentations in open session. We've talked to PMA about our bond structure. We discussed it in board setting. We also met with William Blair to discuss our options. We know that there are increases coming. We also know the timetable in terms of us and our ability to refinance or refund. We also know our first priority is to get off, is to improve our status of our bonds. They are junk status now. We went down one step this year. They look at the last 5 to 7 years audited financials. In talking with Moody's this year, as soon as we complete our audit, which we hope to do so quickly at the end of this fiscal year, and we show a surplus, that's when the discussion takes place if we're able to improve our ratings. Right now at our current status, you're correct. We can't refinance. We can't refund. We have to improve our rating. If that becomes an option, then that becomes a decision for the board in terms of, is it worth the additional cost to extend the life of those bonds. But all of those discussions will take place here in the next several months as we close this fiscal year. It would be my recommendation after we close the fiscal year, we'll work with our assistant superintendent and our director of finance. I would propose that the board consider a financial advisor, whether it be William Blair, PMA, somebody in that field, to help set up structure. But we have discussed those in open session.
Thank you, Dr. Marissa Barnes.
As you are all aware, on April 4th, we will be electing a new board. At the minimum, one of you will not be on this new board because only one of you is running for the two-year seats. As a maximum, there could soon be 5 new faces around this board. Given the current board meeting schedule, there will not be enough time for the county clerk to certify the election results prior to your April meeting. So you will in effect be a lame duck board at your next scheduled meeting. Many have talked about the need to rebuild trust between the board and the community. I can think of no greater trust-building action that this current board could take than to postpone the April meeting until after April 25th. So that the newly elected board, the one that represents the community best, can be seated to conduct the business of this school district. Thank you.
Lee Talley.
Good evening. It's nothing major here, but I just have a concern with your FOIA process. Okay, so you might want to just take some notes. Myself and Karen Town discovered that somebody FOIA'd our emails with the district because we saw it in the last board minutes, right, Karen? That was the last board minutes. Somebody named Riley Anderson from New Lenox. I'm not the most exciting guy. There's nothing there. I wasn't worried at all. And I just found out that somebody else also FOIA'd all 5 of the candidates on our slate. I just found that out tonight. Yeah. So a month later, Karen and I talked, and we said, well, maybe we should FOIA what this Riley Anderson FOIA'd to see exactly what you guys were sending. And it's Mr. Murphy, correct? Is that the tech guy? And I also said, well, let me FOIA Riley Anderson's FOIA form. Okay, so I filled out the proper form, right? Because you have to fill out the form in order to get FOIAs, correct? Okay. And I sent that to Mr. Murphy, and he sent me back all of our emails, but he didn't send me back Ms. Riley Anderson's FOIA form. He said all she did was send in an email. I have a problem with that. So let's do some research here. I said, let's try and find Riley Anderson. It was Riley Anderson from New Lenox. That person doesn't exist. There's only 5 Riley Andersons in Illinois. The closest one is Chicago. So I don't know if it's a real person or somebody who has mental issues. Don't know. I even checked with Yahoo to see about the email address that was provided. It was created a couple of days before the FOIA request was sent to the district, and then it disappeared a month later. I think a recommendation I have for you guys here is you need to have everyone fill out the required form and present it with a photo ID with information. I'm sorry, because you're liable for my information. And I'm an old person, and the worst thing, I tell you, the scariest thing for an old person, identity theft. Because once they get that, they're off to the races. Especially bank accounts and money and stuff like that. So I'm just asking you to fix that. I mean, if you have a form, everybody should be required to fill out that form. That's all. And make sure who is asking for the information is the actual person. That's all I'm asking for. So I'm just asking you to please fix this. And lastly, good luck to everybody on the 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of February 16th, 2017, the closed meeting minutes of February 16th, 2017, approval of the payrolls for February 17th and March 3rd, 2017, approval of the February 13th, 2017 District 210 Advisory Committee meeting minutes, approval of the February 14th, 2017 Finance Building Advisory meeting minutes, the out-of-state travel, IHSA's membership renewal. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items as read?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glass?
Aye.
Mr. Kozel?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkland?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Student Council Presidents. Who would like to go first? Okay, Wes. Wait, that's a teacher. Sorry. Mitchell Algebauer, Samantha Mitchell. Miss Mitchell.
Okay, so this last couple weekends, on March 3rd and 4th, Lincoln Way West hosted a Feed My Starving Children's event where our Warrior Way, which is kind of like the Link Group but at West, and our girls softball team volunteered. We all packaged food as a community, and also the NHS at Central came and joined us. And there we all packaged enough food for 98 starving children to survive throughout the year. This month for our team asset, students at Lincoln Way West donated toys for the Pediatric Treasure Chest Foundation, and our Environmental Action Club hosted a textile drive and electronic recycle collections, and it's still going on through the month of March, but they can donate like little batteries. They all made these really cute posters to support the event. This past week we had our Out of This World Warriors with a special game send-off. Everyone was down the hallway, and all the Olympians came down. We all cheered them on. It was a really fun and exciting event. It was really cool to see how everyone reacted. And we are also here to congratulate our 4 teams that went to state for the winter sports, which is our pom, girls gymnastics, bowling, and our wrestling. Thank you.
And a couple of weekends ago, we hosted our tour for 2017, where we had over 700 students come out. It was the biggest tour for West history, so that was awesome. And then we also, spring sports are beginning at West. Tomorrow, we have our spring recognition assembly. We'll be recognizing a number of individuals and teams for achievements in academics, activities, athletics. This upcoming Saturday, the music department will be hosting their West Fest craft fair, an annual craft fair, all day from 9 to 3 at West, where you can buy crafts and all sorts of things and good food, live entertainment from the music department. And then our prom and social tickets will be going on sale next week. And our prom theme is The Great Gatsby. It's a night at Gatsby's.
Thank you both very much. Central? Joe Donasso and Ms. Kelly Newton.
Sorry. Okay, so next Thursday, Lincoln Way Central Student Council, on the 23rd, we'll be hosting our annual Knight in Shining Armor and Prom Fashion Show, which is a night to honor our seniors. And in the fashion show this year, we have 44 seniors who were nominated and are participating. They're both girls and guys, showing off their pretty dresses and fancy tuxes that they were all fitted for within the past week. And so that is the largest that we've ever had our fashion show to be. And then for the portion of the evening, which is Knight in Shining Armor, we have 11 senior boys, which is also a record high for us. And they will be competing in the 3 areas, which are lip sync, formal questions, and talent. So it's always very exciting to see a bunch of seniors tramping around on stage. And then the winner will receive prom tickets and will be crowned our Knight in Shining Armor. And then Joey is going to tell you about something which I'm super stoked about.
So after those 2 events, as a student council, we're trying to figure out like what else can we do, because the next couple months, we have kind of a dead period where the seniors kind of just go off. So me and Kelly brought up an idea that the East used to do, which is called a framing dinner, which you nominate a teacher and you then have a dinner with them and then you write a speech about them. So we're going to do our own spin-off of it, which is called Teachers of the Night. And I think everyone's really excited for that. And it's just because we have such a big exec board this year, we're just going to go through seniors on student council. So yeah, that's it.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And I see Raj from East of, there you are, Kylie.
On Saturday, March 4th, Lincoln Way East Student Council hosted the 8th annual Mr. and Miss Griffin Show. That was the first time it was held at East. Nearly 1,000 students, parents, and community members attended the show, continuing the beloved Lincoln Way North tradition, which was very awesome to see. Over $4,000 was raised at the event that will go directly to fundraising scholarships for Lincoln Way East seniors who participated in the event, and the scholarships will be presented to them during Scholarship Night on May 17th. Students showed off their casual wear, formal wear, hidden talent, which wasn't actually like a talent really, more of a joke. And I mean, I danced in like a giant like bookcase set, so I did. And their answers to the final question. The winner of the talent show portion of the night was Joe Willis, and his dance basically made it look like he had no bones in his body. And Jake Arthur was named Mr. Griffin, and I was fortunate enough to be named Miss Griffin. Overall, it was such a fun night and a great experience for me and my friends as we're all seniors as we enter our 4th quarter of senior year at Lincoln Way. This show is my favorite event of high school, along with a lot of other students, and it's great to see it continuing to be successful. I know personally I'm looking forward to making the 700-mile trip back from Alabama next year to attend the event, because the winners from the previous year are supposed to come back and crown the new winners wherever they may be. And if you came to the event, I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it on. And if you didn't, I highly recommend coming next year because it is a super fun night to be a part of.
Thank you, Ms. Mead.
And along with that, looking ahead for Student Council on April 25th, we will be hosting our annual dodgeball tournament, which is a fundraiser for the Aaron Toppin Memorial Foundation. Aaron Toppin was a Mokina resident and a Lincoln Way East graduate who passed away in 2014 while serving his country. Student Council has begun planning the event and is looking forward to another successful turnout. In addition to that, plans have begun for Student Council's Executive Board Framing Dinner, like Joey mentioned. We have 22 members on the Lincoln Way East Exec Board, and they have all chosen their faculty members, which are usually coaches or teachers that have made an impact on their lives, and use this event to recognize and honor them for the commitment to their students. And this past Tuesday, over 700 Griffins were inducted into honor societies as we hosted induction night. New inductees into Mu Alpha Theta, Pi Sigma Pi, Science National Honor Society, French National Honor Society, Hispanic National Honor Society, and Delta Epsilon Phi, and the Chinese National Honor Society were inducted. Also, 43 students who have earned the recognition of summa cum laude were honored, which signifies a GPA of over 5.0 for science semesters. So it was a great night to be.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, students, for sharing all the great activities you are doing at your schools, and even more so, thank you for doing what you do, extending the Lincoln Way name out to the community. I commend you all. Thank you. Moving on, Mr. Riley, curriculum and instruction, please.
And tonight we're really focusing on goals that we've set and goals that we've achieved, and I went in the Wayback Machine to 2001 to 2004 when we started talking about needing a reading program here, and that was when our reading for the state was 63% or so meet and exceed. And the board at that time put the goal in, made a really tough decision, pulled back on electives, put the reading in, and over the next, from 2004 to 2016, we've been between 72 and 78%, and that just doesn't happen. Usually you get a 1 point tick up or a point or tick 2 down. So it was a great example of what happens when you set a goal. And part of that goal was to create a reading culture in District 210, not just move test scores. And so I wanted to share this with you. It really just came in the last day or two as we got these numbers. But There's a Read for a Lifetime program that 50-some districts in Illinois participate in. This is Illinois numbers. 683 kids across the state completed 4 or more of the books on this 25-book list. And there's pretty dense reading on there. Adults are the teachers, the parapros that jump in, 14 of those statewide, 37 seniors statewide, have earned this every year, and you can see how it goes. Lincoln Way has 137 of those 683 kids, and East itself has 99. That is unbelievable when you start looking at 20% of a statewide program coming from our district. 9 of the 14 adults that did it are Lincoln Way employees. 14 of the 37 students that got that senior award are from Lincoln Way. So it's pretty remarkable. 26 staff and students across the state read all 25 books during this year on the list. Not just read it, they have to report on it. 9 of those are Lincoln Way folks. And we read about a quarter of all the books in this program just from our high school. So that's what happens when you create a reading culture. And again, that was all driven by things the board suggested back in the day. So we asked the librarians, what are their highlights? 15. This is West. 1,545 students participate in what they call makerspace, hands-on problem-solving activities. They've created a really welcoming environment in the media centers over there. All of our libraries help with testing. If students are absent, they can be sent down there and do makeup work. They have a book match at West that I love. That 200 freshmen fill out a reading survey, and the librarians go through and make sure that they hand a book to a student. If you're interested in this, here's a great book for you to read. It's creating readers. It's fantastic. Central had 34 of those students that we mentioned before. Almost 2,000 tests given already in the testing center, and they had another 25 students, different ones, that didn't do the Read for a Lifetime. They did a different book series, and remarkable. East 955, and we said the 99. Griffin Readers accounted for 15% of all the state awards in that program. So it's shifting a culture, and so I want to take a look back as we do lots of transition in this next month or two. Board goals, vision and direction. And again, some of this is just me from my perspective, and again, very personal, not political, but saying thank you for supporting some of the things and for guiding some of the things we've been able to do here. So you gave us a charge in 2013, 3 things: prepare students for online testing, improve our graduation rate, support our struggling and challenged readers. We were able to field test Park for the first time. The technology worked well. It allowed us to increase our bandwidth. We put in the programs for the at-risk kids like the Ed Options and supporting our most struggling kids. That was the life transition. None of that existed in 13-14. And so the next year, make sure we can fully implement Park. We tested 1,700 students. The tech was flawless. The kids weren't great. If you remember those scores that first year, it wasn't spectacular. Tech worked. A modern math program. We saw holes in what we were doing in math. You encouraged us to do that. What we've got going with math now is really strong. Create programs for our most challenged learners. Life got up and rolling with 30 graduates from Ed Ops in that first year. Graduation rates because of that jumped to 95%. Then we all sat around the table and said, what are we going to do with the Park scores? And math went up 300%. We went from about 15% to almost 45%. It was just remarkable, 140% growth in ELA. That was the new math program coming in, and then Park died. So, it was rest in peace, moment of silence. But, for us, math people were ready to kill me, but I almost wanted another year. It was like, okay, we've got a handle on this thing, but we're fine. Keep improving graduation rates. We're up to 96% that year. The transition program went over 70 graduates. A special thank you for me and Amy and a lot of the teachers that you didn't have to provide that ACT for the juniors last year, but because you did, we had more kids score 30 than ever before. That Dr. Tingley talks about that home court advantage. That was a financial investment that was well worth it for our kids, and we ended up over 23 overall for the first time. So, and then this year, greater state and national recognition. It bothered all of us that we didn't get more of our schools on those national lists, and so You know, East was on U.S. News and World Report, and they're kind of standard there every year, you know, and they should be. Central for the first time, top schools in Newsweek. West was one of the top schools in Newsweek in the country. And then the final challenge was keep pushing our top kids. You know, we focused on that bottom edge. And so last year we had that giant jump in AP, at least $3.5 million that our kids earned in tuition with that. And the graduation rate's up to almost 98%. So here's where we are. You know, we're shifting from ACT to SAT. The transition programs continues to grow. We had our 100th graduate from EdOps. That's pretty remarkable. They roll them through beautifully. Create a host a community forum. And we've got the strategic plan. The electives, I know many of you have talked about that. The electives, the voc ed stuff's as strong as it's ever been. We're actually up sections this year. Art's up a section or two. So that's coming back. And then these are just some numbers that are in your yellow folder. You can grab it sometime. But if you go all the way back, AP produces this nice 5-year trend for us. So this is just Central at the top. They're all the same. 290 kids in 2012, 312. We were right around that 300 for a long time. And then this was the year between 15 and 16 that you gave us the charge, let's go. Let's kick up our top end. And they went from 331 to 568 at Central. And we just got the numbers this week. It's going to be almost 700 kids at Central. And all of our buildings are like that. And again, that all starts with just goals, you know, board goals, and you can give us a charge and off we go. So that's all the classes. The ones in the boxes are ones that we don't offer yet, or they just haven't gone here. We're working on it. I always look for an Italian, Japanese teacher out there somewhere. If we could get a 2-for-1, that'd be fantastic. The little star up at the top, that's the newest thing with AP, where they do projects, and they do year-long research projects rather than take a class, and they have to produce the portfolio. It's interesting, something we're going to look at a little bit. So here's the numbers. I'll wrap up here. Again, these are just in this week. West last year, 299 total test takers, 508 exams. That's this year. Now again, the school's bigger, but the growth rate is bigger than the increase in the student population, which is what we wanted to see. The numbers on the bottom are great. World Language had 11 kids last year, 44 testers this year. Central had that really big jump last year, had another gigantic jump. I love that bottom number because it means lots of kids are taking 2, 3, 4 tests. It's not just getting new kids in the system. You look at the world language at the bottom again, 56 last year, 106 in a school that's about the same size. And so pretty remarkable. East had a huge year. Again, not just, it's far more than what you would expect with the kids coming in. And so everything's very strong. Here's district-wide. Even with fewer kids in the district, we're up almost 130 test takers, new students taking tests, and over 600 total exams. And so you know, kudos to our teachers, for you guys for having the vision on it. It's pretty remarkable stuff. So just again, personal thanks for guiding the direction and sometimes saying no to us when we have a harebrained idea, but a lot of the good things that have happened have been vision driven, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Riley, for being driven to achieve that goal moving forward. It says a lot about our staff also, really pushing the kids to take those tests and encouraging them to do those tests and at least try. A lot of times we don't get the score that we anticipate, but you got to try. You gotta try a lot of things.
This is in the board docs as well. Good evening. One of the goals for this year is to develop technological solutions to address the growing needs for students and staff in both daily instruction and assessment. So throughout this year, the technology and instructional staff along with a number of teachers, have had the opportunity to attend a number of conferences and training sessions and seminars with regards to Google Docs, Office 365, and a whole host of others. Very exciting times for the teachers and the instructional staff and tech staff to be able to do these things. We come back pretty excited and really jumping into some new technology. Based on all those conversations, we're ready to move forward in the world with an upgrade to our Office Microsoft product. We are upgrading to Office 365. It's part of our Microsoft agreement that we have currently. So it's no additional cost to the district at this time. It is everything that we have going on is in fact 100% included. It offers many features for our staff, including a full terabyte of online storage, which is incredibly awesome. And the amount of storage that a terabyte is, I picture my wife and the number of pictures that she has on our external hard drive. We don't even come close. So with our teachers and the ability for our teachers to store stuff out in the cloud is just a great advantage. Not only because of the storage, but also because of the fact that they're going to be able to retrieve their files from anywhere, and not just on the Linkaway network, which is how it's currently set up today. Right now, everything that they have is on our internal network, and this is the only place that they can get it. The other awesome feature and benefit of this upgrade is the 5 free downloads of the Office 2016 suite. So all of our machines within the district will have Office 2016. One of the benefits of this upgrade is any staff member that once we migrate their account will have the 5 free downloads to use on their personal computers at home. So that's pretty awesome. It's really neat what Microsoft has been able to do for us. The next few slides are what was presented at the March Institute, just kind of showing the login process of how to get into the Office 365 suite. It's a very similar process to what our teachers have been used to with regards to retrieving their email. Nothing's really changing. What is kind of different is what they see when they finally log in. And these are all the different apps that are available in the Office 365 suite. As you can see there, you have Word, PowerPoint, Excel. There's an app for their mail. But really what separates Microsoft from Google is the use of the OneNote and some of the features that they've included with their PowerPoint. Those are the pieces that really sold the staff on Office 365. And again, the really awesome thing here is just the ability to be able to access all their files from anywhere. So again, this is just what we kind of presented to the staff at that Institute Day. Kind of looks like their network folder as far as their management is concerned. And their email is almost identical to the way that it was in the past. So all things considered, everything's kind of status quo for them, except for we've got some neat little upgrades. So what's next? The upgrade has been a very long process. We began in January migrating our administration, our tech team, over to the cloud. Working through that group of people, then we migrated the department chairs and started working with our department chairs and getting feedback from our department chairs on how things were going. From there, we're currently migrating our teaching staff. And you see there's a schedule up there. We started actually on Monday night of this week with our mathematics department. Because it takes a few hours for a migration of a small group to occur, we want to make sure that we hit everybody, and then the following morning we can come back and answer any questions with each of the individual departments that we need to. So all of this is what we had planned. And like all good plans, they're subject to change. So at this point in time, we're actually ahead of schedule. We're going, based on the way that the migration is going, we're going to start taking all the people that are set to be migrated in May, we're going to start pushing them up into April so we can get this done before May. So that the teachers and staff have an opportunity to ask as many questions as they need to in the last month of school before they go home and start using these tools on their own. Our instructional tech has been awesome. They've been able to go out and meet with the people individually, one-on-one, in large group sessions. Really, it's a very intimate setting where our teachers aren't feeling overwhelmed with the new technology and the changes that are taking place. So it's been great, and the instructional techs have been doing a fantastic job. So with all of this is where our current step as far as upgrading some technology and trying to move forward. But But it leads us to that next objective, which was the evaluation of our bandwidth. With more and more of our technology and our software applications going out to the cloud, we have to evaluate that. It's a very important piece of the whole technological world. If we look at where we are at in our current bandwidth, we have 500 gig of data coming into the school district. It's not a whole lot. We're at 75 to 80% on a daily basis. So throughout that time and with everything going out to the cloud, it's really important for us to take a quick look at it. We're currently under contract with Comcast, and we're under contract with them until the end of the next school year. But we've been in discussions. We've gone through our E-rate process to try and get some information from any vendor that wanted to put in a price for us, and we've received that information back. We are at a point where if we're able to renegotiate a contract, that we'll be able to save some money and yet still increase our bandwidth, probably to two full gig as we move forward. Let's see. For a comparison, in your backup material, I provided a chart to other similar districts and the bandwidth that they have coming into the district with an understanding of their technological environment. Of the school districts that were listed, only 3 of them are fully one-to-one and provide a large amount of bandwidth. 3 others are going to be fully one-to-one by the fall of 2017. So to give you an idea, in your backup material, I said we looked at Lamont, District 230, Rich Township, Joliet High School, Bremen, Oak Park River Forest, and Lockport. For where we're at and the number of devices that we have in the district and the amount of information that's going out to the cloud, we are meeting the needs of the teachers as we sit today. It's a question of, as we continue to move forward, we're going to have to continue to evaluate and make sure that we are meeting the teachers' needs and the students' needs for them to be able to go out to the cloud. Beginning this summer, another really awesome feature of our licensing agreement with Microsoft is the ability to provide our students with an Office 365 account. Our students will also have those same benefits that our teachers do. They'll have the full terabyte of storage out in the cloud. They will have the 5 free downloads of Microsoft Office 2016. They will have those same features. So that students will be able to work on a paper here at school, and instead of having to worry about saving it to a flash drive, they'll be able to save it to their cloud environment and work on that same document at home. All of which can be provided through our licensing agreement with Microsoft right now. We're really excited about that. I think that's a great step, and we're going to test the waters this summer with our summer school courses. Those that are going to be in summer school, we're going to be working with those students first. And then in the fall, we'll be putting a plan together to make sure that all of the students have everything that they need. This also, again, testing the waters to make sure that it's the right thing for us to do, but it would also give them the opportunity to have an email account if we chose to provide our email account to them as well. But all of that is going to put a lot of stress on the bandwidth for the district. It's going to take the stress off of our internal network, and it's just going to move it to a different location. But the benefits of moving it out to the cloud far outweigh us keeping it in-house. So we're really excited about it. Our staff and our instructional technologists are really excited about it and really moving forward. They're doing a great job in creating the professional development that's necessary to make all this happen. We meet with them quite regularly, and again, it's just one of those things that is, again, something, a goal that you've been able to charge us with, that we've been able to step up and make sure that we're meeting all the things that we said we were doing.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Question? The bandwidth, what do we spend right now for our bandwidth?
The number that we spend right now is about $10,000 of a monthly recurring cost per month. Our initial costs when we were going out were about $2,000 to $3,000 cheaper when I went and priced it out for a new contract. What we do when we have to go out for contracts with our bandwidth, we have to sign anywhere from a 3 to 5 year contract with the provider in order to secure that price. And so that's why right now, we're starting today, actually we've been working on this since January, and working with the various vendors to prepare and either A, renegotiate a contract with them as we continue moving forward for next year, or hold off for another year and go through the process again.
Okay. Have we looked at Comcast as far as us breaking that contract, to try and what cost that might be to try and get the savings and additional?
I have, and if Comcast will allow us to renegotiate the contract at no cost, as long as we sign another 3 to 5 year contract. There is a penalty if we leave contract with 1 year remaining.
Okay. And then also with the Office 365, I assume that also includes not only, obviously, you said the 5 licenses for use, but it also includes like Word Online and the online features. Absolutely. And the mobile devices as well.
Absolutely.
So we're going to have kids walking around with their cell phones writing papers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Which is having a teenage daughter, it's going to be good that she can actually do some productive things on there.
Dr. Murphy, do seniors take this with them, or is this something that only is there to use while they're a student?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, it is only theirs while they're here at Lincoln Way. So their 4 years here, it's when they'll be able to have it. At that point in time, Office 365 also has a free account that you'd be able to create for a personal account. And students would be able to do that, and we will walk students through that as we prepare them to lead through Lincoln Way. It's an easy transfer of information for them to do so. The benefit of having a school-created account allows us the opportunity to move forward with the OneNote classroom, which we're not yet ready to explore, but that's where teachers will have seamless communication with the students through the Office 365 product.
Thank you. And what's the thought right now? I know you mentioned email with the students. Are we looking at restricting external email from coming in and out of those accounts, or what's from an educator's perspective? What's the thought process there? What we want to do?
Those are great discussions that are yet to be had. To be honest with you, the initial thought is to limit it to Lincoln Way email only. So
I think that's a good idea to be cautious
before we actually roll out any email to any students.
But I'd be very interested in seeing what the administration and staff have to say about what they feel is best to proceed in that arena.
One more quick question. Do we know if any of the feeder districts are in a position where they're also going to be shopping for bandwidth that maybe might be a position for a better deal because we're the numbers simply,
Yeah.
quantity that we might be able to get a better deal
To try and
for.
co-op with
with
a school district. One of the things that we've learned over the years when we're looking at bandwidth for the districts is, we can get bandwidth from AT&T, Comcast, ICN, Fidelity Link, whoever that we want to get it to. The problem is getting it actually into our building.
Gotcha.
And so there's a lot of build-out costs that's associated with it if you're not going with, let's say, Comcast for sake of argument, because Comcast already has the links into our building, right? And so the actual build-out is much greater. And then the connections, those are the connections that would allow us to feed to all the other districts. So some of our districts have AT&T, some of our districts have Comcast, some of our districts rely solely on ICN. So we're kind of all over the place based upon who has the pipe out to that school district. So to answer your question, we've talked about it, but none of us are on the same page because of who is being brought into the building. AT&T's at one, ICN's at the other.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Thank you.
Moving on to action items. First action item would be the tax anticipation warrants. The next item will be the proposed issuance of the district's educational proposed tax anticipation warrants. The Board of Education will consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance and the sale of said warrants. The resolution sets forth the parameters for the issuance of said warrants and the sale thereof by designated officials of the district. The amount of the warrant is $3 million. The warrant becomes due on October 30th, 2017. The rate of interest for the warrant is prime rate minus 1.65% and will not be less than 1.85 or more than 3%. The resolution provides for the deposit of certain of the district's taxes for educational fund purposes directly into a designated escrow account to secure said warrants and the execution and delivery of tax escrow agreement in connection therewith. Secretary Kozel, would you please ask for the motion?
I would ask for a motion for the resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $3 million taxable 2016D educational purposes tax anticipation warrants in the anticipation of the collection of taxes levied for the year 2016 by the Board of Education of Community High School District Number 210, Will and Cook Counties, Illinois, for educational purposes, the sale of said warrants to Old Second National Bank, the deposit of said taxes directly into a designated escrow account, and the execution and delivery of a tax escrow agreement in connection therewith.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second, please.
Second.
Discussion.
Are these the same terms that we have with the first 20 million?
Correct. Yes.
Anything further? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Blatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozel?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Thank you. Presentation of invoices for February 2017, please.
Motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $2,309,167.57 dated March 16th, 2017.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion, please.
I just have one, I don't know if this is Dr. Murphy or Dr. Tingley. We pay Rialco $33,000 to archive all of our student information. That seems expensive.
So one-time price, and Brian probably knows more about this. Brian, you want to explain the concept? I know it was better than the offset of continuing to have them come in for service calls. Go ahead, Dr. Murphy.
So the archiving of the student information system, like Dr. King was saying, is a one-time cost for that. Otherwise, we would have to maintain the Rialco software at a dormant state, along with the charges that would go along with that. So that would have been a perpetual cost. So it's
For an archaic system.
Yeah, for our case, we wanted to make sure that we could move forward and allow that system to go ahead and be put to rest, so to speak. We will be doing the same thing with our financial side within the next year.
Same cost?
The cost is still yet to be negotiated on the financial aspect of it, so we're working with that. We needed to wait until we had our first full year of Skyward underneath our belts, and then with talking with Kelly and the Assistant Superintendent for Business as we move forward, we'll continue to figure out exactly what we need to do as far as archiving the financial records.
Okay, thank you. Just seems, that makes sense.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Blatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozel?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. We have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for February 2017, please.
Second.
Discussion, please. It's for you.
Okay, sorry. So get used to this, sorry. For the month ended February 28, 2017, the district recognized revenues of $2,250,049.44 and expended $6,817,984.70. Our total cash fund balance as of February 28 was $9,664,799.64. And we had a total fund balance when accounting for our warrants and loans outstanding of $10,335,200.36. For fiscal year to date, our operating revenues are $43,921,494, which is a 3.6% decrease from operating revenues recorded through the same period in the prior fiscal year. And our actual operating expenditures fiscal year date are 8.7% less than the prior fiscal year date, in total $54,424,632. The most significant factor for a 3% decrease in operating revenues continues to be the delay in our mandated categorical payments from the state. We're still two payments behind. As of March 31st, there'll be 3 payments behind, so I expect that we'll be receiving at least 1 payment here in the next couple of weeks. We also are behind, continue to be behind in our federal receipts. I followed up with District 843 to see where our expenditure report, where our reimbursement for our expenditure report from December 31st stands, and they confirmed that the Illinois comptroller had processed the payment on March 3rd, so they were expecting a check to them, and which will then they will cut a check to us, which should be approved at their March 21st board meeting, so we should receive it shortly after that. We'll have another quarterly claim that will I'll submit shortly after March 31st that should be right around the same amount, if not higher, than that $407,000 that we're waiting for. The decrease was also offset a little bit this month by the money that was moved from our closed student activity accounts, which accounted for, or which totaled, $414,226.42. That was the total amount of money that was moved over from the closed accounts. Our operating expenditures continue to look good. We're tracking as expected. And we're 8 months through our fiscal year, so 67%, and we've expended 64.1% of our budget.
Thank you. Any questions for Kelly?
Please. I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead.
Oh. On page 2 on your treasurer's report summary, the 4th bullet, the 4th bullet concludes with that about regarding the 2 residential lots that the asset booked into the education fund and is included in the fund balance, period. But then this line right below that says the land is not included in the education fund balance. So I'm kind of confused, and maybe I'm missing a beat here.
I think the point of this is to say that it is in our fund balances, but not represented in the treasurer's report. If it's something that, we can add going forward, it would probably be another column, because it's not part of the cash balance. It would probably be part of the warrants and loans outstanding. We can add an asset there that shows land for sale for that too. I think it's $245,566.
Right. Okay. All right.
I think it was just to keep it on the radar that we do have that
Doesn't fit in there.
as an asset.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
I just have a quick question about the state categoricals. Just that we're expecting the second payment to come in by the end of this month?
It would be the first payment for this fiscal year, but it would be
Because
the
they're-
second cash payment that we've received. It's just that the first one was from our prior fiscal year.
Yeah, and you said that since there are 3 behind, that they're forced to pay this one by the end of March?
No, I think that there's some, I don't know if it's law or code that I might be speaking out of, because I don't know the details behind this, that they become more than 6 months overdue.
Okay.
Basically, that there could be action that could be taken. So that's why I think we saw that last one come in right when it hit that 6-month mark.
Okay. Which leaves my follow-up question. Before the end of this fiscal year, will that happen again where there's something that's actionable if we don't get what would be the second payment by June 30th? Or is that not likely to be the case? And I know I'm asking you to speculate.
It's hard to tell at this point. I just think that it's highly doubtful that we'll receive 4 payments this year, 4 total payments.
Sure.
Other revenue is 124% budget.
The main reason for that was was it last month or 2 months ago? I don't remember. we received almost a $600,000 check from District 843 for their reconciliation for our FY16 expenses. That's the main reason for that. And also a lot of the money that came over from student activities was also recorded to other revenues.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Are we comfortable from a cash flow standpoint now that we have the $3 million additional in TAWs if we don't receive a state categorical payment by May?
We should be. We've looked at that pretty closely over the last couple of weeks to just make sure that we're in good shape if we don't receive money from the state. I think, once we open up registration, we'll be receiving cash, which will help our cash balances. It's something that we're going to be monitoring very closely. I think we can continue to work with our insurance affiliation to hold payments if we have to. We have been holding payments, but I'm sure that we can continue to work with them to do that.
The money from Manhattan, will we be able to utilize that?
Yes, that would be deposited into our O&M, so it will replenish our balances. And both, if approved this evening, should be closed by the close of this fiscal year the 12th.
Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lullo? Mr. Poso?
Aye.
Mrs. Glatz? Aye. Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Next item, approval of the student activities report for 2017, February 2017. Can we have a motion, please, to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mrs. Lutz.
Okay. For the month ended February 28th, the total student activity fund balance is $1,819,703.69, with credits of $352,901.23 and debits of $855,350.04. I did include the actual checks that were cut in February, which only totaled $352,769.53. I knew that debit amount looked extremely high. I didn't want you to think that we cut almost $900,000 in checks this month. The debits are made up of both checks and journal entries, and the journal entries were made to close out the student activity accounts. That was the majority of the journal entries. We have normal journal entries every month in student activities where we're transferring money between accounts, but the majority of that was the student activity account closeout. I highlighted two accounts that have a negative balance at the end of the month. They're both central athletic accounts. One was the girls' swim team and one was the boys' volleyball team. They're just timing differences, which should be rectified in March, by the end of March. I did also present 3 new accounts that we would like to open essentially within our student activity fund, and the descriptions for those. Only one of these is an actual new activity. We have a lot of activities that don't necessarily need an account in our student activity fund. They don't fundraise, so they don't need to hold their money anywhere. The Griffin Flyers is an activity that was actually a North activity that the Special Service Department at East started this year at East with our special education students. And so this has actually been going on all year, but they're going to want to deposit the money that they have been collecting from their shopping trips in new accounts. So I'm recommending that we open an account for them for that. Boys swim team obviously has always existed at Centro. They just always managed the swim team accounts within one account. And so they've requested that we separate it, which would be consistent with how the other 2 schools, so that they didn't have to track separately outside of the student activity account, which amounts related to the boys and which amounts related to the girls. And then the science NHS, that was, if you may recall, the North balance has been kept there because there was not a corresponding East account to transfer it to. They have started they're going to, I'm not sure if it's already started or if they will be starting a science NHS chapter. And so they requested that account, and I transferred the balance from the North account to the new East account.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glatz? Aye. Mr. Kosel?
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti?
Aye.
Mr. Perking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Mr. Schiff, personnel report.
Good evening. I'd like to refer everyone to the personnel report. Under employment, Thomas Deniger, security, maintenance and grounds, Lincoln Way Central High School has accepted the position of security guard effective March 8, 2017. Sarah Hanley, athletics, Lincoln Way East High School has accepted the position of assistant girls water polo coach for the 2016-2017 spring season. Dennis Harper, bus driver, transportation, has accepted a position as a bus driver for the Lincoln Way High School District beginning on February 27, 2017. Eric Havlaka, athletics, Lincoln Way West, has accepted the position of head coach for girls swim and dive team for the 2017-2018 school year. I'd also refer you to the contract for Mr. Kaufman. So Brad Kaufman, assistant superintendent for business, CSBO, with an effective start date of July 1st, 2017. I ask the board to approve these employment recommendations as presented.
Motion to approve the employment recommendations as presented, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, questions?
Included in your backup materials, a memorandum illustrates compensation for CSBOs or assistant superintendents in surrounding or comparable high school or unit districts. Comparisons were found in the compliance documents on each district's website. Obviously, we used data from this year's salary pool, while it included Mr. Kaufman's proposed Lincoln Way District 210 benefits package for next year. As you can see, in terms of the range of experience and scope of work, it favorably compares. This is a budget-neutral addition. The district will not pay Steve Linger nor Rich Pagliaro next year. As a result of the transition to Skyward Financials, we will have one less bookkeeper needed in the district. We will absorb that salary of that position through retirement savings. Approximately $81,000 when you add in all salaries, benefits that are included with that position. So the total compensation of Mr. Kaufman will be covered by the estimated savings as a budget-neutral move. Most important factor, I believe, is that the district has the opportunity to hire an experienced and qualified business manager to guide the business operations. Moving forward, Brad will lead, organize, direct the operational, financial, and budgeting services. He will oversee buildings and grounds, food service, transportation. He will be responsible for the annual tax levy, creation of the annual budget, short-term borrowing, bids and contracts. He will also be involved in the management of the long-term debt. His position will create a system of checks and balances with Kelly Lovesaw, our current director of finance. Kelly will continue to oversee the day-to-day financial management of the district and the bookkeeping department. She will establish and monitor financial controls and serve as the district's internal auditor. She will track daily revenues and expenditures and approve all purchases. I wanted to share that information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding for Mr. Kaufman or anyone else for this evening.
Dr. Jimmy, how many people were interviewed for this position?
We interviewed 4 this time. We only interviewed candidates that we felt met the criteria of experience. One of the things the board had asked is that we find an experienced business manager that has experience dealing with large school districts.
And how many overall applications were received?
Over 20.
And you're not the only person who interviewed these 5 candidates. Was the choice of this candidate was unanimous among everyone?
Yes, consensus amongst the group. Yes.
It's got larger districts. I mean, we're at 100 million. This is something, they have a Kelly position and a Brad position. That's something that a lot of districts do, even though maybe we haven't been there in the past.
Yeah, no question for us. It provides that checks and balances which is one of the things the auditors had asked us for this last time around, puts us in a much better position. We have an individual that will be able to oversee the operations and the finances of the district, but it was imperative, as you've seen all the work that Kelly has done just with the student activity side. We still have work to do on the general ledger, and having additional, having Brad in that position will allow Kelly to spend all of the focus on the accounting and the day-to-day accounting of the district.
That's excellent. I'll never do.
And just, you said revenue neutral, we're actually shedding, if I'm reading your memo correctly, we're shedding $201,000 in salary and benefits and replacing that with $189,000 of salary and benefits.
Yes, approximation of
$11,000 to $12,000 savings.
Savings, okay.
Any additional questions?
On the contract, where it says student performance and academic improvement, and it has a line in there, the board and the administrator agree that these goals include indicators of student performance and improvement. Obviously, Exhibit A looks right to me.
Yeah, Exhibit A.
So can we strike that? We can make sure.
We can strike the student performance and just leave it Exhibit A.
Any additional questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Blatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozel?
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. And Mr. Kaufman is with us tonight. Welcome to the Lincoln Way community. It's a great place to not only work, but also to live. Welcome to Lincoln Way. Moving on, Mr. Schiffer.
All right, under retirements, Teresa Walker, paraprofessional, Lincoln Way Central High School, requests to retire at the conclusion of the 2017-2018 school year. I ask the board to approve this retirement recommendation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Blatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozel?
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Resignation, leaves, other. Mr. Schiffauer.
Under resignation, Sarah Brady, head sponsor for Orchises at Lincoln Way Central High School, requests to resign at the completion of the 2016-2017 school year. Christopher Mason, teacher, special services, Lincoln Way Central High School, has requested to resign from his teaching position effective March 10, 2017. Under leaves, Michelle Cardilano, English teacher, Lincoln Way West High School, is requesting a one-year sabbatical for the 2017-2018 school year. And Sarah Music, English teacher, Lincoln Way Central High School, is requesting an additional year of parental leave for the 2017-2018 school year. Under other, Emma Romanek Lucas, paraprofessional, Special Services Department, recommended for full status employment as she has completed her 90-day probationary period. And Andrew Minnis, custodian, Lincoln Way East High School, recommended for full status employment as he has completed his 90-day probationary period. I ask the board to approve these personnel recommendations as presented.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
One quick just clarification. I know on the resignations in the past, we've seen, like with Sarah Brady, she's resigning from Orchises. Is she still retaining her teaching position?
That's correct.
Can you just maybe make that notation in there when we're seeing it? Because I think it's helpful for us because we don't always know, the multiple positions these people have.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything additional? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Blatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozel?
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Schiffauer. Need a motion to approve the 5-year strategic long-range plan, building and grounds, finance, and technology. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Who's first, Tim? Who's first on our list?
Rich is up first. We had curriculum last month, community relations.
Mr. Wilkie?
basically, for the strategic plan, our group wanted to take a look at an organized capital and maintenance operations plan and a security plan for students and buildings. As far as the capital and maintenance plan is concerned, what we're planning on doing is an assessment of the facilities and a preliminary document by next month to present to the board. Basically a list of needed improvements, potential projects over a 10-year period. Followed up by an annual review of that document to prioritize the capital needs and as related to life safety and educational support. We will be using our 10-year survey, roof survey, pavement survey, and input from the principals in the schools. They live in the schools every day and they know if the facilities are appropriate for programming on a daily basis. That's going to change from time to time. That's why we feel an annual update of the prioritization would be warranted. Also, the last part of that plan would include incorporating a computerized maintenance management software with the capability of cataloging all the equipment in the district. We have huge buildings with tons of equipment, air handling equipment, fans, boilers. And we talk about being proactive in our approach to maintenance. We need data in order to be proactive. We could just assign a life cycle to an air handler of 20 years and replace it whether it's working or not. That would be very expensive. We could just run everything till it fails. That could also be very expensive and dangerous. So we need to find a balance to collect with this programming, with this software. We want to collect data over the next several years and track maintenance costs in relation to the life cycle of the equipment in order to spend our money wisely when it comes to equipment replacement.
Very interesting.
Secondly, the security. Does anyone have any questions on the capital and maintenance plan?
No, the only other thing I'd like to add is I know that's something that we've talked about quite a bit at the Building and Finance Committee that Chris and I are on, and it really is just going to come down to that synergy of building that long-term plan and the budget that goes along with it and the direction that this board is going to give that committee to be able to move that forward and help Rich and his team out to have that as a plannable expense every single year. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
The second goal would be enhanced school security plans for students and buildings. We're going to form a collaborative district security committee, and Dr. Provost will lead that committee. He's been the principal that's been most involved. Evaluate and assess current security in other schools. That would be the security committee. Building principal, director of buildings and grounds, and building supervisors. Determine goals and objectives. That would be something that would be brought to the board intermittently throughout the next 5 years, and update security plans and procedures as we move forward. It's important that we stay connected, particularly with our officials in Will County, our first responders. We have annual meetings, obviously we have to, and report those meetings to the ROE, but that constant communication moving forward is something that Dr. Provost will be the point person as we develop these committees moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Tingley.
Finance.
So our finance group and the strategic planning committee set 2 goals: to restore fund balances, to provide and maintain fiscal stability, and to, where is the other one?
Demonstrate fiscal
Oh,
responsibility.
here it is, sorry, thank you. And I should know those off the top of my head, but, and I do, believe me. So for our first goal, restore fund balances to provide and maintain fiscal stability, we have 3 different action steps. Our first was to set a fund balance target and time frame to achieve it. And a couple action items down in the agenda, you can see that we'll be doing our second reading of Policy 420, which is our fund policy for the district, to set a minimum fund balance that we should try to strive to first achieve and then maintain. This fund balance policy was vetted with our Finance and Building Advisory Committee on Tuesday night. We've made a few changes, which we'll review. And then hopefully we can get that passed and start working towards that fund balance minimum. Our second and third action steps kind of go hand in hand, and that is to investigate and quantify potential revenue enhancements or new revenue sources, and investigate and quantify potential cost reductions. Both of these are going to involve basically a brainstorming session with the Board of Education, from input with Board of the Education and administration. And I anticipate that this will be done during the next fiscal year. We'll research, after this list is created, we'll research the feasibility of each of these items and also quantify either the amount that it would bring into the district or the savings in the matter of the cost reduction. And then from there, I think it'll be discussed and we'll get direction from the Board of Education to move forward with whichever ones you deem that we should move forward with as far as pursuing. Goal 2 is to demonstrate fiscal responsibility while maintaining current student programs. Our action steps were to establish an annual procedure to update long-range financial projections and strategies. This is also something that will occur in our next fiscal year, where we'll be developing a full financial forecast which incorporates the results of the capital project and technology plans, a demographic and enrollment study, and any revenue enhancements or cost reductions that we'll be pursuing from our action steps in our first goal. Secondly, we'll be establishing, we're already in the process of doing this, but establishing and maintaining effective internal control policies and procedures. By the end of fiscal year 2017, as you know, I hope to have internal control narratives in place for each of the district's business processes, and then in fiscal year 2018, develop a complete and detailed internal control manual from which we will all operate from. From there, I'll perform periodic audits of the district business processes to determine that the internal controls are being maintained.
Great, thank you very much.
I have a question. On the first one where we mentioned about revenue enhancements and sources and costs, isn't it, I'll call it B on that item, already in the District 210 Advisory Committee?
Yes, they're looking right now at sponsorships to bring forth a policy here with their recommendations that typically occurs in April, May. And I know, I talked to you, I visited Bradley Bourbonnais where they had just purchased a new scoreboard with sponsorship money, and the way they went about that, the board is paid off immediately, and then after the 5th year, all advertising becomes a revenue stream. So there will be a policy presented from District 210 Advisory, and then something for the board to consider as we move forward.
I guess the reason I was asking was as it was presented, it just seemed like this was going to be more of a 18-19 impact, not a 17-18 impact. Is that true?
Well, yes and no. I think depending upon the timing of when we can do some of these things, their policy is going to be a recommendation to the board of this is what you could do or couldn't do. What I would look for guidance from the board as we work our way through this is how corporate do we want to be. I do know over the next fiscal year we're going to investigate the possibility of an exclusivity deal with a uniform provider for all of our sports and activities. See if there is, number one, any savings, but then number two, if there's any revenue associated with going with one brand across district. So that's one of the first things that we will be looking at, and when we would be able to implement different brands have different phase-ins, but those would be things that we're going to be looking at.
I would just suggest that as they become available, yeah, because
Quickly as possible.
you just never know when you're going to find it. There seems to be a little revenue impaired.
And
Go ahead.
on the, I'd like to see the plan schedule tightened up a little bit on this long-range financial projections. Maybe target a little bit, not the whole fiscal year of 2018 as a plan goal, let's move it up.
Yeah, it's on an individual's 100-day plan, which I thought was optimistic. We're going to spend the first day with us next week, but we're going to get that to you as soon as we can, Chris. And we've given, as you know, that the strat plan was an overview, and that was based upon current expenditures, revenues. I know Brad's going to nail it down more line items as we work through the process.
Thank you. Dr. Murphy?
So technology, we had the opportunity, we created 2 goals. One was to create a technology plan, preparing students for college life and career readiness. With that plan, technology plan is an ongoing plan. It's ever changing, it's ever growing, it's ever being adjusted. Some of the things that we know that at the committee we're really focusing on is determining whether or not we're going to go and be a one-to-one environment. So to address that, we kind of put into place, improve the ratio of devices to the end users. And that's important as we go more and more out to the cloud environment with our student activities and our the opportunities and software that we're providing our students. So we'll continue to evaluate that. The more information on that to come. Some other things that we'll be doing, obviously completing an inventory. We have an inventory of our current equipment. It's now attaching a life cycle to our current inventory and determining the replacement plan. So we'll continue on that. And then evaluating our staff needs and providing technology. That's an ongoing process, especially with the changing technologies. In goal number 2, explore, develop, and maintain an infrastructure. We talked a little bit about that earlier today, evaluating our bandwidth and increasing when necessary. That's always going to happen. And then the other piece was that I wanted to highlight here today was evaluating the wireless coverage throughout the district. When we revamped our wireless infrastructure 4 years ago, we were able to put wireless access points in just about every classroom. We're completing that process and hope to have that completed before summer hits. There will be a few places that we're going to need the building empty to make sure we can get them up high enough, like in the gyms and in the field houses. So we'll be doing those over the summer. We have been in contact with a number of outside groups to help us and make sure that we're on the right track with regards to our coverage of the devices that we're using. And those conversations will continue. But that's the process of maintaining the infrastructure. Again, it's one of those things that is ongoing at all times.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion with a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti? Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. We have a motion to approve registration fees for the 2017-2018 school year.
I would like to make a motion to table this until our May meeting. May.
We need to have that done in April in order to have things in place for registration beginning. So could you withdraw that motion?
I withdraw that motion then.
Please. Okay, thank you. Do I have the motion, please?
So I make a motion to approve the fee schedule as presented.
Second? Dr. Tingley, you want to?
Well, we're closely monitoring Springfield, and as we know, there's news coming out, but nothing substantial at this point. At this time, if we stay on the same time frame as last year, we approved fees in April. We were still able to collect roughly $1 million in this fiscal year. To stay on that current path, you know, it may be prudent that we take the next couple of weeks, we see if anything does materialize in Springfield. We just had spring signups. I know that's one of the questions board members had for me was, what are the participation numbers? So we just started, we just completed our first week. We now have some of those numbers, so we can do a little bit more work, a little bit more research, and bring any additional information that you may want to our next meeting.
Okay, at this point, we have a motion with a second.
Can I, well, just quick, for sure.
Ask a
Chris
question,
and Chris,
sure.
has this been to finance and building?
We have not seen it at finance and building.
Why we go to finance?
No, it's finance.
So the revenues.
So revenue.
I think it looks like we do a policy to advisory, maybe we should, and they could maybe look at that before.
And instead of May, then just table it. Should we table it till next meeting then? And then
I would just, I mean, if you said, you guys, Chair,
Yeah.
you're in those meetings, you guys have great discussion about this type of stuff. And so it'll allow you to vet the numbers, run them against what you just talked about, the activity numbers, number of participants, see the impact, and then could lay it back over rather than, I mean, you're struggling with the idea that it's just a number.
Right.
They don't know how it sits in the budget. That's where I'm sitting at.
Are we going to have a more firm handle on our expenses by April?
Expenses, we will have a pretty good idea. It's the revenue, the unknown.
I understand. So at the very least, we're hoping to have a firmer grip on what the actual expenses are going to be by the April meeting.
Yes.
so that would give us the opportunity, if we did it that way, to, in April, we meet the Tuesday before the board meeting. We would just have to put it on there as at least an action item for April
Okay.
now.
Okay.
You know,
So that we
can incorporate it.
So we incorporate it correctly and make sure that we have it, because the problem with that meeting being so close to our existing meeting is we have to give 48 hours notice, and that meeting actually occurs in the 48th hour, or the 47th hour.
You also have to lay out, I think, scenarios for the committee to discuss. I mean, just
Can't just
throwing this out and saying, you know,
So we-
discuss isn't going to get anywhere.
No, so I guess a proposal of a flat, we can do a proposal of a flat activity fee. That's something that's been discussed. We can do a proposal of per activity. What else, I mean, what other scenarios would the board like to see?
Can we see, and obviously no activity fees, but can we see maybe, do we have any data that we can gather from other districts who have gone from a 0 to something fee for activities?
You mean in terms of what that does to their
To involvement in our programs, because I can't see that it's going to be a positive impact on our programs.
Use of families do it.
And so we have this motion. I'm sensing that this motion is not going to carry, as it is. I can ask all those in favor. What do you say? Okay, everybody? No? May I have a motion then to,
add, I would like to make a motion to add this as a agenda item for the next meeting,
at the building and finance?
for the building and finance and for the regular board.
Okay. It's going to be tabled. Table this motion. And I would like a roll call, please. I need a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. And roll call.
Who made, you made?
Chris.
Kozel and then Lulo.
Thank you. Mrs. Glass. Aye. Mr. Kozel.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Kirking.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mrs. Molinaro.
Aye. Thank you. We have a motion to approve policy 420, the second reading, please.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
this was discussed at the finance
Yeah,
meeting.
the finance meeting,
You guys are kind of quiet, I couldn't hear.
No, no problem. We're speaking up now. The one thing that we talked about quite extensively about this, I think, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, what the consensus that we came across with from the finance and from the members there on that committee was that this should be at not 25%, but 33% or 120 days. That setting that goal a little higher is the right way to do this, because we are truly setting a goal, and that if that goal is, if we do not meet those criteria, then an action plan must be presented by the board.
So we will need, we put the 33%, I will need to add the 120 days to do that.
Well, that's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
That's the same thing. My concern is I didn't see the action plan being required if you were
below that threshold.
The threshold.
So you have to add it.
Yeah, we will add that sentence that an action plan must be adopted by the board during the budgeting process. Chris, is that what we agreed to, Chris and Chris?
I think that's reasonable. I don't know if we really went that
On
specific.
an annual basis.
On an annual basis. We will add that language.
Was there, and again, because you guys were kind of, was there some discussion too as far as the monitoring of this? How often it's going to, how often it's going to be?
I think monthly during the cash flows.
Okay,
We
so-
want to state that in here, we can, but I mean, it's always during the treasurer's report.
I think, and I think the one thing that we came across with that discussion is obviously, as the finances change year to year to year, and what this district is going to go through, because we're writing a policy that has to be kind of a one-size-fits-all for every year from now on. We wanted to at least give the board the opportunity to, if they fell below that threshold, to build a plan and present that to the public in an open forum, so that with the public, we can work to hitting those goals of 120 days or 33%.
And I thought it was interesting, and at least for the other board members who weren't there, if you could explain why the 33 versus the 25 and what, as it pertains to.
Yeah, I mean, it's roughly trying to figure out when we would be off the tax anticipation warrants, and that 25%, given where our revenue comes in from the state, being towards the end of the year, and we're measuring it on June 30th, it would be close. I mean, it would be close if we would be off the TAWs. So we thought moving it to 33%, basically from 90 to 120 days cash on hand, would make sure that we were covered.
So it would set a policy that would kind of stop us from going back into a tax anticipation.
Correct, and just being able to balance
really
our
great
income
of the committee.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
a
right.
great
This is the
example
same thing,
of
Joe.
how
This
this stuff
is-
works.
This is a great example of effectiveness of that
I
committee.
don't know, is Steve here? That was a good conversation.
And then moving forward, this would be a grant function in July moving forward?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's on the goals. And I would like to also point out that I've looked at other districts' policy, and it does not come close to the detail that our policy that we're approving tonight comes into play. There are districts that I've looked at, and we're talking the New Triers, the Stevensons, the really top-notch districts, even some closer to home that I'm not going to name, are very generic in one paragraph. So, thank you again for.
And I think the most important thing too is that there's some accountability in this policy as well for the board and for the community, to present to the community what's going on.
Agreed, yes. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Motion to approve with changes.
Yes, motion to approve with changes as discussed.
Mrs. Glatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kosel?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Perking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo? And Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Resolution of the sale of district property. Could I have a motion, please? You want something different?
We need to. So
Oh.
a motion for the,
Thank you.
we'll do the first
Okay.
first sale of property.
Okay. Motion to approve the resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement for the sale of real property to the Manhattan Park District.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
The purchase price will be $701,500, and we are anticipating a close date, the last possible close date of May 30.
Any indication might be able to do it sooner?
That's our goal right now. With the intergovernmental agreement, there's a little more flexibility, so that's what our attorneys are working on.
And then if we were to close it earlier, would we get any sort of refund on, insurance or any other pieces? No?
And then look, there's no contingency or anything on it. They've approved this moving forward. So
Yes, right.
That's what things gets.
Any further discussion? We'll have a roll call on that motion, please.
Mrs. Glatz.
Aye.
Mr. Kozel.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkland.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari.
Aye. Second property is like a resolution authorizing the sale of real estate property commonly known as Feast Farms located at 16460 and 16462 West Manhattan Road. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
That listing price will be $1,250,000 with an anticipated close by April 6th. The one contingency is an $800,000 loan, but we've been assured from the First Bank of Manhattan we'll be able to move forward with this sale of real estate.
Any questions? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glatz.
Aye.
Mr. Kozel.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkland.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari.
Aye. Informational items. Report of the Lincoln Way Special Ed District 843 Governing Board. Mr. Lulo.
I attended that meeting. It was a shortened meeting. That was the bad storms, Ottawa tornado night. So we saved those, did what we needed to do, and adjourned. Dr. Tingley and myself will be back Tuesday to continue with negotiations for the teachers and the speech paths, and we'll keep you guys updated as things progress.
Thank you. FOIA requests. Thank you, Mr. Lulo.
You're welcome.
List of FOIA requests were found in your backup materials. For the last month, we received a total of 39 FOIAs.
Thank you. Number 3, which is the 2016 audit findings review, number 13.
Number 13 dealt with the treasurer's bond. Okay, it was a timing of the cash collection of property taxes. We were at 6 million, am I right, Kelly?
Yes.
We were at 6 million, we needed to increase the bond to 7 million, and so that has been done. It's bond coverage in the amount greater than 25% of the highest anticipated cash investment balance. We did not have the bond in place this past fall. We hadn't received the findings of the audit yet, so we'll work with our auditor on this one. Kelly, anything to add?
No, just to highlight, I guess, that our highest fund balance is in September, and like Dr. Tingley was just saying, we were at only $6 million at that time. So, we'll just have to work with the auditors this summer to see if they, this might appear again next year. If it does, it's not a major comment. There are no repercussions for this, but I know the goal was to try to get all of these off this year, but this was something that we probably couldn't have avoided. But we will, obviously, we need to re-up our treasurer's bond July 1st, so we'll determine at that time what the right balance or what the right amount should be for that September 1st high balance, so that it definitely will not be an issue for the 17-18 fiscal year.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkie, Building and Ground.
Yes, there's a copy of the operations and maintenance report on board docs. Nothing out of the ordinary, no huge variances there. Approximately $814,000 below expenditures as compared to the previous fiscal year to date. If no one has it, or if anybody has any questions about the operations and maintenance report, electricity, water usage, or any of the utilities, I'll be happy to answer them.
Can't hear you.
Otherwise, I would like to move on to the life safety report.
Any questions for Mr. Wilkie?
Okay, life safety, please.
The 10-year life safety survey district report was received last Thursday for Central and Annex combined, as well as for Lincoln Way East. They've identified approximately $835,000 worth of work that should be completed by July of 2020. At Central, approximately $165,000 worth of work should be completed by July of 2018, and $226,000 by July of 2020. There's some recommended work that adds up to about $3,500. It's not a violation, it's just recommendation. At East, priority A items add up to about $31,000. Priority B to about $400,000, $405,000, and again, $3,500 worth of recommendations. Cost estimates for all this work are based on the assumption that contractors perform all the work. A large amount of work will have to be performed by contractors and publicly bid, but there are some items that are considered minor maintenance items that our staff will complete in-house at a reduced cost, and we're currently working on deciding which items we will take care of that we can handle in-house and which ones we will have to plan for bidding and architectural design. If anybody has any specific questions about the life safety report or violation and recommendation schedule, I'll answer it to the best of my ability. As I said, we did just receive this on Thursday.
I think the one thing we did talk about this again at that Finance and Building Committee, it was important that he had just received it, and we were looking at giving him some time to go ahead and go through this report and come back with some suggestions to try and get these numbers down and what work we can do internal and what work has to be external. And it's just going to be an ongoing process and part of that long-term plan that we're going to have to put together. And this is a good starting point of what has to be done at a couple of our campuses.
Thank you.
Update for the B-Wing boiler repair and replacement. Attached, you have an advertisement and an invitation to bidders. That job was advertised starting today, and specifications available today. We will have a pre-bid meeting on the 22nd and a bid opening on the 30th. We hope to bring that recommendation to the board next month. There's also a notice of abatement attached. The notice of abatement is in regards to some asbestos removal work that will have to take place in that boiler room and surrounding basement prior to the boiler project commencing. That word asbestos, since that's a little bit of panic sometimes, this project is designed and will be monitored by licensed asbestos professionals and will be in accordance with all laws and codes. That will happen over spring break.
Is that enough time?
Yes. Yes, our consultants felt that that was plenty of time.
You're still on the boiler?
I'm still on the boiler.
There's a breakdown of the cost of the boiler, and there's pending. Are those insurance claims that are?
Yes, that spreadsheet that was titled the boiler loss spreadsheet is a status of all the claims that we've submitted to date. And today I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me. Let me open it up.
Copy.
No, I haven't.
Well, no, just my question would be, is there any reason to believe that the pending claims would not be honored?
I don't have a reason to believe the pending claims would not be honored. The only one that could possibly be questionable or adjusted slightly would be the one that says proposal for repair of existing equipment. Basically what that means is the insurance company wants to compensate us the level that we could restore the equipment to its condition prior to the incident. our engineers and the consultants to the insurance company have not been able to identify exactly which piece or part has caused this. So in order to find out, it would cost a lot of money to take the equipment to laboratory and test. So it looks like that we might get to the point where they might just pay for the equivalent of replacing those boiler doors, which then we could then take that money and put it towards our boiler project.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I asked this question earlier because I thought it was a little confusing to have if you look at the last line there, the 12/14/2016, to have in that first amount column, the $149,500, because that wasn't really something that's been paid.
Right.
So that's really just something that would be applied towards the new boiler.
Got it.
The rest of them are all, invoices that have been paid and labor.
Thank
you. Central roof replacement bid. Again, there's an advertisement and invitation in the onboard docs. The dates are the same for the pre-bid and the bid opening. We're estimating the cost at around $700,000, which is a couple $100,000, actually more than we originally anticipated. The reason for that is once we identified the 7 areas that we felt were the highest priority, our architect came out with some roofers. They did some core samples and found 2 of the sections had wet insulation, so they will now require a full tear off and replacement. Any questions on the roofing? Okay, and the last item, I just want to talk a little bit about tennis courts. The tennis courts at Central and East are really in dire need of attention if they're going to be able to be used by our students. A full replacement for the courts is pretty expensive, very expensive. There's a possibility that there may be a chance to reuse some of the existing court and overlay it. There's a couple different methods out there. We contacted an expert in that field and asked them to provide us with quotes to evaluate and plan for moving forward with those courts, whether it's replacement or if there's going to be some value in repair work or renovation. So when I get that cost for the proposal for the evaluation, I'll bring it back and then discuss.
Will the tennis teams have a place to play this spring?
Currently, we have several courts at Central and East that are open for play. Our maintenance department internally is doing some crack filling to get a few more courts at Central and East open. There will be several courts at both Central and East that will not be playable at all this year.
Can we utilize the courts at Orphan Bussards?
We will be, yes.
Correct.
Once the snow melts, yes.
Rich, and just one other thing on the asbestos. I discussed this with Dr. Tingley, and I know we're doing a good job. I just had a call from a concerned parent, and obviously we have a contractor come in. They subscribe to all the OSHA standards for the employees and all the EPA, so nothing is airborne. They do this for a living. They do it legally. They do it right. It's something we're not doing. These are professional licensed people that will be doing this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. It's just that, you hear asbestos and you don't hear, and we're going to Disney. It's always something. It's so. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well said.
Mrs. Atwell, Community Relations.
Sorry, I was a little late. My dog escaped. He's terribly behaved. On February 23rd, the Lincoln Way Symphony Transit, they performed its inaugural concert. I talked to Stacy Jackson beforehand. She's super excited. This is the first year she's done it. It's something she's been wanting to do forever, and those kids are extremely talented. These are kids who are involved in umpteen bands at school, and this is just kind of an additional thing that they volunteer their time for. They're playing super high level pieces, and it turned out great. The Lincoln Way West wrestling team made history when they took 3rd place at the state competition on February 25th. So congrats to the Warriors on an excellent season. Lincoln Way East Music Boosters have begun hosting their annual fish fry events, with the first 2 taking place at the start of March. For those who haven't had a chance to go yet, the next 2 are on March 24th and April 7th in the Griffin Cafeteria.
and they feature live music and great food. You can also pull up and order right there at the door if you don't have time to go in and enjoy the music.
And I will be flying on the 24th, so.
Lincoln Way Central hosted College Week during the second week of March. Students were able to ask the teachers and administration about their college experience, and a college and career fair was hosted with 130 partners from universities, trade schools, tech schools, and military branches. I think it's really neat that we bring in, tech schools and military branches. Not all students are college bound, so there was something for everyone at this fair. 16th annual special games were hosted on March 9th. 11 schools participated. That has grown enormously. If you didn't get to check out an article, there's a great article. I'm looking at Messenger right now. And the students had a blast. I think the volunteers enjoy it just as much as the students do. It's a great event. All 3 schools hosted academic honors nights throughout the months of February and March. We're incredibly proud of the enormous number of students who consistently give their best effort and the teachers who give them the tools to succeed. The Senior Citizens Breakfast saw a great turnout last Friday. Seniors were impressed by the performances of the talented students. Dr. Stingley presented at the State of the Village in Manhattan last Thursday, and as you all know, board members attended the New Lenox and Mokina Chamber Expos over the past few weekends. We look forward to seeing you at the Camper Expo on Saturday. And as stated in previous reports, the foundation has been busy preparing for the Lincoln Way Half Marathon. So many runners or virtual runners are encouraged to sign up online for that. And I also wanted to add that Teresa Kozak is a cadet at Lincoln Way West. She was accepted to the United States Air Force Academy. And it's just a huge honor. She is a stellar student. Just to talk to her is awesome. So if you get the chance to congratulate her anytime soon, thank you, Ms. Catwalk.
Moving on to the asset of the month.
Asset of the month for April, positive identity. A student has a positive sense of self and a strong motivation to succeed and help others become successful. At home, help students realize that with hard work they can accomplish much. At school, expose students to positive role models and teachers, staff, and coaches. And in the community, help young people to set personal goals that inspire hope. That's the asset of the month for April.
Thank you. Legislative report.
Legislative report, I did not include anything in your backup material. There's not a lot of movement in Springfield. You all received the email regarding seatbelt usage or seatbelt requirements on school buses. This is not the first time that such legislation has been presented in Springfield. We'll continue to monitor. I would encourage you to reach out to your senators and representatives. There are a number of issues with the legislation. One being that there are 2 restraints per seat. That's additional buses for us, particularly for grade school routes. We have a number of routes where we drive high schoolers and grade schoolers with the same bus. There are different studies that indicate, if you're using the restraint, it must be used properly or it becomes a detriment. So a lot of research out there. In terms of the cost analysis, it would be very expensive, depending upon how the bill is actually written and then approved, whether it's a retrofit or going forward. But it's something we'll continue to monitor as it goes through.
And right now, it's an unfunded mandate, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So the average cost, I think, was around $13,000 per vehicle.
Per vehicle.
And there
So we're
was
talking around $2 million right now to outfit our.
discussion
For
that,
$95 release, so I had 13,000.
yeah, the younger students would need assistance.
Correct.
with
That's
that.
one of
Would
the,
we-
you would need a bus monitor to make sure the grade school students were appropriately harnessed, or, the seatbelt was done appropriately, or otherwise in a situation of an accident, it could do more damage. So
Right.
that's one of the opposition to the bill to say, a lot of expense. But we'll continue to monitor it as it works its way through the channels and stuff.
Okay, thank you. You are on a roll. Superintendent's
District report. I put in your backup materials just a property tax freeze estimate. There is discussion, but yet, once again, no movement. Just a scenario that is included. We put our local revenue in 2016 at $62,565,000. We know our CPI is going to be 2.1, and then we rolled it out at 1.9%. with a 2-year freeze, you can see that in 2017, we would lose 1.3 million, 18, then as it compounds, 2.5, 2.5, 2.6, 2.6, for a total over 5 years, loss of revenue of about 11.7 million. That'd be significant for us, obviously, but wanted to share just kind of what property tax freeze impact would look like. It's very, just very, very basic look. Also, we have developed an RFQ for the Inspector General. I want to clarify, this is not a full-time position. This would be an hourly position with an hourly rate. We developed an RFQ. We would place that on our website most likely tomorrow, if not Monday. You can see the timeline. Deadline for qualifications would be March 17th. Their qualifications issued March 17th. Proposals due on by the 19th of April. We would interview the first week of May and then bring a recommendation to the board in May. The intent was to start this July 1 for a July 1 start date with whatever individual or firm we choose. I welcome any thoughts on the RFQ process. I did receive 5 or 6 different phone calls and letters that were interested in the position. I thought this was the best way to go about it. Also then...
So you said, I'm sorry, you said you're posting it to the website?
It'll be on the website.
Are we doing any other type of marketing?
We could have,
press release or press release
Taryn
out
yes,
there?
Taryn can certainly do a press release with the deadline date so that it's out there.
Yeah, the only thing about the language of the actual document that you provided with us is it says that any persons would be expected to cooperate. Can we maybe, once we get into the nuts and bolts of it, maybe firm that language up a little bit more? I'd like to see
which number here?
Under the investigations, it says expected to fully cooperate with the independent inspector general in any investigation. I would like to see the word expected be a little stronger than expected and required. For employees and or board members that are required to cooperate with the inspector general versus expected.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5th sentence from the bottom of that paragraph. Board members, district employees, contractors, and subcontractors, like those persons or entities seeking contracts are expected to.
Legally, I don't know that we can.
That's what I don't. That's a question.
This
Self-incrimination.
Yeah. Well, this has been this was taken from the policy, and the policy itself was approved by our council. So
okay.
I don't.
This mirrors policy and has policy in the state. It's kind of funny, so I think the language needs to stay. Thank you.
Also included is a pride sheet for your review when you have time. And then the last item, we will need to set a special meeting date for once the canvassing, the election is complete. I would propose Wednesday, April 26th as a possibility for a special meeting, as it has to be in that 1-week window. So we don't need to do it tonight, but if you can check your calendars. I know I've talked to Chris and Ron, who I know will be here, and Wednesday, April 26th is what I would propose for a special meeting. Also, one last item, for action after closed session, there will be no reduction in force this year. That's good news. We received one more notice from a teacher who's planning to stay home for the school year. That we have at least 3 and one more possibility with some movements and some flexibilities with departments, and then also retirements. We will not see any reductions. And we know next year then is a larger year of retirements. So we're hoping that will kind of get us through the wave, so to speak. So there will be no reductions this evening for full-time teaching staff.
Like a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of employees, collective negotiating, establish the sale or lease price of real estate, student disciplinary cases, and litigation. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glatz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozel?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Kirky?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari?
Aye.
You could bring your devices.